She was about to marry the love of her life until one phone call shattered everything. The groom's secret, hidden until the last moment, could destroy their future. Just moments before the wedding, she overheard something that made her question everything. What happened next left her heartbroken, and the truth was far worse than she could have imagined. But what would she do when she found out the real reason he couldn't marry her? Hannah stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the veil in her hair, feeling a mixture of excitement and a strange, gnawing feeling in the pit of her stomach. The day was finally here, the day she had been dreaming about for years. Today, she would marry Ethan, the man she had fallen in love with since high school. Everything was perfect. Well, almost everything. There was a quiet, unexplained discomfort that seemed to follow her all morning. She tried to shake it off. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, right? She looked around the room at her bridesmaids who were bustling about, laughing and helping her with her dress. Their excitement was contagious, but Hannah couldn't push the feeling away. Something wasn't right. She'd had these small, fleeting moments of doubt before, but she always brushed them off. Ethan loved her. He'd promised her the world, and they were about to start a life together. But as the wedding day approached, she began to question if there was something she didn't know. As the morning progressed, those small doubts began to grow. She noticed Ethan was acting distant. Every time she tried to approach him, he seemed to be lost in thought, staring off into space. Hannah brushed it aside as pre-wedding jitters. Maybe he was just nervous. They both had been planning this day for so long, but when she went to check on him before the ceremony, she caught something she wasn't prepared for. Ethan was in the next room holding his phone to his ear, speaking in a low voice. "I can't do this," she heard him say quietly. "I need to tell her the truth. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." Hannah froze. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her legs felt weak beneath her. What was he talking about? She couldn't make out all of the conversation, but those words, "I can't do this," repeated in her mind, each one hammering into her like a wave crashing against the shore. She had no idea what Ethan meant, but there was no denying it. He wasn't talking about the wedding. He wasn't talking about her. Panic slowly started to creep in. Why was he hiding something from her? What was going on? In the silence that followed, Hannah tried to steady herself, taking a deep breath before stepping away. Her mind raced as she tried to make sense of what she'd just overheard. Could it have been a mistake? A simple misunderstanding? She didn't want to believe it, but something deep inside her told her that wasn't the case. Ethan had been acting off for days, but she chalked it up to nerves. Now, it felt like something much bigger was at play. She needed answers. Without thinking, she went into the next room, where Ethan was still holding the phone. When he saw her, he immediately put the phone down, his face falling as if he had been caught doing something he shouldn't have. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, his voice strained. But there was a strange nervousness behind his words, one she hadn't heard before. "Hannah," he said, his voice shaky, "I was just talking to my brother. We've been—" But she interrupted him, her voice filled with a mix of anger and confusion. "What were you talking about? What truth? What do you mean you can't do this? We're getting married today. Are you seriously doing this now?" Ethan's face went pale. He stood there, frozen, unsure of what to say. The seconds felt like hours, the weight of the moment crushing him. I didn't want to hurt you," he stammered, his words stumbling over each other. "I didn't want this to happen today." "Then tell me!" Hannah shouted, her voice cracking. "What's going on, Ethan? What aren't you telling me?" He closed his eyes as if trying to prepare himself for the truth. "Hannah, there's someone else. I've been seeing someone else. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. I love you. But this has been going on for months now, and I don't know how to end it. I didn't know how to tell you, and now it's too late." The words hit Hannah like a slap to the face. Her breath caught in her throat as she tried to process what he was saying. She could barely breathe, the air in the room thick and suffocating. This couldn't be happening. Not today. Not on the day that was supposed to be the beginning of their life together. She felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. You're cheating on me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. It didn't feel real, but the tears in her eyes told her otherwise. Ethan's face was a mix of guilt and regret, but it only made her feel worse. "I never wanted to hurt you. I love you," he pleaded, his voice breaking. I was confused, and then it happened. I didn't know how to fix it. I never wanted to lose you." Hannah took a step back, her heart shattering with every word he spoke. "I can't believe you. You think you can just tell me this now, hours before we're supposed to get married? After everything? You don't get to do that, Ethan. You don't get to destroy everything we've built." The room felt smaller as the reality of the situation set in. The future she had imagined was gone. Everything she had worked so hard for, everything they had planned, was now nothing but shattered pieces of a dream. And the worst part? She didn't even know if she could ever trust Ethan again. "I'm leaving," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I don't know if I'll ever forgive you, but I can't marry you today. I won't." Ethan looked like he was about to say something, but Hannah was already walking toward the door. She didn't look back. She couldn't. As she stepped into the hallway, her heart ached with the enormity of what had just happened. She had loved him. She had trusted him, but trust was something she couldn't give him anymore. And for the first time, she realized she didn't need him to define who she was. Hannah went to her bag and grabbed a piece of paper and a pen. She quickly scribbled a note, the words spilling from her heart, as if they had been waiting to escape. She didn't know how else to say it, but the truth had to come out. She left the note on the bed, where Ethan would find it. It wasn't a long message, but it was all she could manage. "I deserve honesty, love, and respect. I cannot marry you today. I can't be with someone who betrays me. I'm leaving. Goodbye." Hannah didn't wait around to see his reaction. She didn't need to. She had made her decision. She was done. As she left the house, her heart was heavy, but she felt a strange sense of relief. The weight that had been pressing on her chest for days had finally lifted. She didn't know what her future held, but she knew one thing. It would be hers to decide. The wind hit Hannah's face as she stepped outside, the cool air almost shocking against her flushed skin. The world around her seemed to stand still, the chaos of the day fading into the background. She walked down the street, her thoughts racing, her mind trying to make sense of what had just happened. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She was supposed to be standing at the altar, about to marry the man she thought she knew. Instead, she was walking away, heartbroken, and with an overwhelming sense of betrayal that she couldn't shake. As she walked, the tears that she had held back began to fall, each one a reminder of the devastation Ethan had caused. The man she had trusted, the man she had promised to spend forever with, had destroyed everything in a matter of moments. The wedding she had imagined, the future they had built together, was now nothing but a broken promise. She couldn't go back and undo the hurt. She didn't even want to. She pulled her phone out of her bag and looked at it for a moment, her fingers hovering over Ethan's name. Part of her wanted to call him, to yell at him, to demand answers. But the other part, the part that had just left him, told her that there was no need. He had already told her what she needed to know. The lies, the betrayal. It was all out in the open now. There was nothing left to discuss. Hannah felt a sharp pang of guilt. She knew that Ethan had been struggling, that his secret had weighed on him, but none of that excused what he had done. "You don't betray someone you love," she thought bitterly. Not like this. She had always believed that love was built on trust and respect, but now those things felt like distant concepts she'd read about in fairy tales. They didn't exist in her world anymore. She knew she had to make the right choice for herself, for her future. She couldn't let this man, the one who had hurt her so deeply, continue to control her story. He was no longer the person she had once thought he was, and she had to accept that, no matter how painful it was. As she continued walking, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. It was a message from her mother. "Are you okay? Are you still coming to the ceremony? Everyone's waiting for you." The words were simple, but they stung in a way that nothing else had. How could she explain? How could she explain to her mother that the life Hannah had been planning for so long had just crumbled? She didn't know how to tell her, didn't know how to face anyone right now. She typed a quick response, her fingers shaking as she wrote, "I'm sorry, Mom. I can't do this. Please tell everyone I love them." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. She didn't want to face anyone, especially not today. She needed time to think, to breathe. Her phone buzzed again, but she ignored it. There was nothing left to say. Hannah found herself walking aimlessly, unsure of where she was going. It didn't matter. She was just trying to get away from the overwhelming emotions that swirled inside her. The anger, the heartbreak, the sense of being lost, all of it mixed together in a chaotic storm she couldn't escape. Her mind kept replaying the moment she had overheard Ethan's call. "I can't do this," the words echoed in her mind again and again. What was it about her that wasn't enough? How could he have hidden this from her for so long? It didn't make sense. She had trusted him with everything, and he had broken that trust in the worst possible way. She couldn't understand why he had waited until the last minute to tell her the truth. Was he hoping she wouldn't find out? Or had he just been too afraid to face her? Either way, it didn't matter. The damage was done, and she was done with him. She walked past the cafe where they had shared their first date. It felt like a lifetime ago. That day they had laughed over coffee, talking about their dreams and their future together. Back then she had never imagined this moment, walking away from the life they had planned. Back then she had believed in him completely, in their future, in the love they shared. But now, all of it felt like a lie. She had given him everything, and he had thrown it all away. Hannah's steps slowed as she approached a bench in the park. She sat down heavily, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on her. The tears came again, and this time she didn't try to stop them. She let them fall freely, the sobs racking her body as the reality of what had just happened began to settle in. She was no longer the bride waiting for her happily ever after. Instead, she was a woman forced to face the painful truth about the man she loved and the future she had built in her mind. The life she had imagined with Ethan was over. The life she would have to build on her own was just beginning. Hannah wiped her eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She was stronger than this, she reminded herself. She had always been strong. But this was different. It wasn't just about getting over a failed relationship. It was about rebuilding her entire life. The path ahead was uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't keep going down the road she had been on. Ethan had shown her who he really was, and now it was time for her to show him and herself who she truly was without him. As she sat there, alone in the park, Hannah realized that this was a turning point. She couldn't keep holding on to the past, no matter how painful it was. She had to let go of Ethan and the life they were supposed to share. It was time to move forward. The sound of birds chirping in the distance was almost soothing, but it wasn't enough to quiet the storm inside Hannah. As she sat on the park bench, still reeling from the conversation she'd had with Ethan, she knew she needed to make a decision that, no matter how much it hurt, would ultimately be the best one for her. The life she had imagined, her wedding day, her future with Ethan, was slipping through her fingers like sand, and she could either keep trying to hold on to it or let it go and find something new, something stronger. She pulled out her phone again, but this time it wasn't to check messages or respond to her mother. She opened her contacts and hesitated for a moment. It was her best friend, Lily, who had been there for her through everything, the good, the bad, and all the confusing moments in between. Hannah had always shared everything with Lily, especially when it came to her relationship with Ethan. But how could she even begin to explain this? How could she tell Lily that the man she was supposed to marry had betrayed her in the worst way possible? With a deep sigh, Hannah dialed Lily's number. The phone rang several times before it was picked up, and when Lily's familiar voice came through the speaker, it almost broke Hannah. "Hannah, where are you? Are you okay? We've been trying to reach you. The ceremony, what's going on?" Hannah bit her lip, trying to steady her voice. "Lily, I can't do this. I can't marry him. Ethan, he's been hiding something from me. He's been seeing someone else, and I don't think I can ever trust him again." There was a pause on the other end, and then Lily's voice, calm and reassuring, came through. "Oh, Hannah, I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine how you're feeling right now." Hannah felt her heart ache at Lily's words. "I don't even know what to do. I thought I knew him. I thought I could trust him. How could he do this to me?" "Honey, listen to me. You deserve someone who is going to love you, respect you, and never hurt you like this. Ethan isn't the one. I know it's hard right now, but you're so strong. You've always been strong, and this is going to be just another chapter that you will get through. And I'll be here every step of the way." Hannah let out a shaky breath, trying to hold back more tears. She could feel her best friend's love and support, even through the phone. It was exactly what she needed to hear. "I don't know if I can do this alone, Lily. Everything I've planned, everything I thought I was going to have, it's all gone. You're not alone, okay? You've got me, and you've got so many people who care about you. This isn't the end of your story, Hannah. This is just the beginning of something new, something better. Trust me, you'll find your way." Her words sank deep into Hannah's heart, giving her the strength to stand up from the bench. The weight of the situation hadn't completely lifted, but she felt something else. Hope. It wasn't the kind of hope that promised everything would magically get better, but the kind that whispered, "You'll survive this. You'll heal." "Thanks, Lily," Hannah whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "I'm here for you always," Lily said, her voice soft and comforting. "Just take it one day at a time. Do what you need to do, and we'll figure it out together. I'm proud of you." With that, they said their goodbyes, and Hannah stood up. She was still in shock, still hurt, but she had made a choice. She wasn't going back to Ethan. She couldn't. The life she had once dreamed of was gone, but she knew now that she would create a new one on her own terms. As she walked back to her apartment, her mind was filled with the overwhelming reality of her decision. She knew that in the coming days she would face a lot of questions. People would ask where the wedding went, why it was canceled, and what had happened. But none of that mattered now. She was done explaining herself to anyone. She was done being the person who lived in the shadow of someone else's decisions. The walk felt like a journey, not just through the streets of her city, but through the heart of her own soul. Each step was a reminder that even in her pain, she was moving forward. She had a long road ahead, but for the first time in days, she felt a glimmer of peace. There was strength in walking away, strength in letting go of someone who had hurt her. And though she didn't know exactly what the future held, she knew that it was hers to decide. The door to her apartment felt different as she approached it. Not like a home full of dreams, but a place where she would start over. She wasn't sure if she was ready to face the aftermath, but she knew it was time. Time to begin the process of healing. Time to rediscover who she was, independent of Ethan, independent of the plans they had made. Time to make a life for herself that didn't depend on anyone else's choices. When she walked inside, her gaze immediately went to the wedding dress hanging in the corner, still pristine, still untouched. The dress that was supposed to symbolize the beginning of her forever with Ethan. She walked past it, her steps steady, and went straight to her bedroom. She had to make a plan. She had to take control of her life again. The wedding dress would stay there for now, but so would she, standing tall even though her heart was broken. Hannah stood in the middle of her bedroom, staring at the dress hanging in the corner. The sight of it, so perfect and untouched, sent a wave of conflicting emotions through her. Part of her wanted to throw it in the trash to rid herself of everything that reminded her of the broken promise and the man who had betrayed her. But another part of her knew she couldn't just erase it. It wasn't just a dress. It was the symbol of a future she had once believed in, a future that now felt like a distant, unreachable dream. With a heavy sigh, she turned away from it and began to unpack the things she had hastily thrown into a bag earlier. The day had spiraled out of control so quickly that she hadn't even thought to grab anything other than her essentials. As she pulled clothes from the bag, folding them neatly, her thoughts were a whirlwind. She had never imagined her life would take this turn. One moment she was walking down the aisle, preparing to say "I do," and the next she was packing her things and walking away from everything she had known. The reality of the situation hit her hard. She needed to find somewhere to stay. For now, her apartment felt too quiet, too empty, too full of memories she wasn't ready to face. Her phone buzzed, breaking her out of her thoughts. It was a message from her mom again. "Honey, we're all worried about you. You've been gone for hours. Do you want me to come over?" Hannah didn't have the energy to explain. She was tired of answering questions, tired of being the one who had to explain the unexplainable. Instead, she simply typed back, "I'm fine, Mom. I just need some time. I'll talk to you later." It was a lie. She wasn't fine, but she didn't want to drag her family into the mess that Ethan had created. This was her fight, her pain to process. She couldn't bear the thought of everyone hovering over her, trying to comfort her when she didn't even know how to comfort herself. Sitting down on the edge of the bed, Hannah felt a strange numbness wash over her. She had always been the type of person who had everything figured out, someone who had a plan for the future. But now the future felt like a fog, an uncertainty that she couldn't see past. How had she ended up here? How had Ethan, the man she thought she would spend the rest of her life with, betrayed her so completely? Every time she thought of it, the same questions circled in her mind. Was she blind to the signs? Had he been acting distant for months and she just hadn't noticed? She ran her fingers through her hair and stood up. The wall seemed to close in on her. She had to get out of here. She needed to clear her head. Grabbing her purse, she left her apartment, locking the door behind her. As she stepped out into the cool evening air, she was hit by a wave of calm. The street was quiet, the hum of the city just starting to quiet down as the sun dipped below the horizon. It felt like the world was moving on without her, as if life itself didn't care about her broken heart. She walked without a destination, her feet carrying her through familiar streets she had walked 1,000 times before. But tonight they felt different. Everything felt different. She passed the cafe where she and Ethan had met for the first time. The memories hit her hard. She had been so hopeful then, so sure of their love. Now that hope felt foolish, like a distant fantasy. She didn't know if she could ever trust anyone again. Ethan's betrayal had cracked something inside her, something she didn't know how to fix. The city lights flickered in the distance as she kept walking, trying to shake off the heavy weight that clung to her chest. It felt like she was walking through a fog, disconnected from the world around her. As she turned the corner, she found herself at a small park, the bench where they had once shared a quiet moment sitting just ahead. She could almost see it, Ethan sitting next to her, his arm around her, whispering that everything would be okay. But that was before. This was now. And now she was alone. Hannah sat on the bench, her hands resting on her knees, staring at the ground. She didn't know how long she had been sitting there. Minutes? Hours? It didn't matter. The night was quiet, and for a moment it felt like the world had paused for her, allowing her the space she needed to breathe, to think. She took a deep breath, wiping away the stray tears that had begun to fall again. Her mind was a mess, but one thing stood out clearly. She couldn't let Ethan define her future. He had made his choice, and it was up to her to make hers. She had always prided herself on being strong, on being the one who could handle anything life threw her way. This was no different. It wasn't the life she had planned, but it could still be a life. Slowly, Hannah stood and walked away from the bench, her steps a little steadier than before. The road ahead was uncertain, but she knew she couldn't keep looking back. Ethan was part of her past now, and as painful as it was, she had to let him go. She couldn't heal if she kept holding on to what was already broken. As she walked back home, she felt a small flicker of something inside her. Hope. It wasn't the overwhelming, unrealistic kind of hope she had once held for her marriage, but a quieter, more determined hope. The hope that she would get through this, that she would rebuild her life. And maybe, just maybe, it would be even better than the one she had planned. Hannah barely slept that night. She tossed and turned in the quiet, empty apartment, the events of the day replaying in her mind like a broken record. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan's face, his pleading, desperate eyes as he confessed his betrayal. His voice, so full of regret, echoed in her ears. She thought she had known him. She thought they were building something real, something lasting. But now she couldn't shake the feeling that the man she had loved didn't really exist. At least, not in the way she thought he did. Morning arrived slowly, the gray light filtering through the blinds, offering no comfort. Hannah sat up in bed, her muscles sore from the emotional weight that had dragged her down the night before. She didn't feel like herself. She didn't feel like anything. She was just a person, lost in the aftermath of a life she thought she was building. She glanced at her phone. There were several missed calls from her mother, a few texts from her bridesmaids, and then a message from Lily. "I'm coming over. You need to talk." Hannah smiled faintly, feeling a flicker of gratitude. Lily had always been there for her, through thick and thin. But today, Hannah wasn't sure she had the strength to talk. She wasn't ready for the pity, the questions, or the well-meaning advice. But Lily was insistent, and part of her was thankful for that. She couldn't shut herself off from the world forever. After a long shower, she dressed in simple, comfortable clothes. Nothing too special, nothing that reminded her of weddings or promises. It felt like too much to even think about that day. She went through the motions, making herself a cup of coffee, though she couldn't taste it. The world felt muted, like she was floating above it all, watching everything happen without really participating. The knock on her door came sooner than she expected. It was soft at first, tentative, like Lily wasn't sure what to expect. Hannah walked over slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. When she opened the door, Lily stood there with a look of concern on her face. She took one look at Hannah and pulled her into a tight hug without saying a word. The simple gesture made Hannah's throat tighten, and she fought the tears that threatened to fall again. "I don't know what to say, Lil," Hannah whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so lost. I thought I had everything figured out." "You didn't know this was coming, Hannah. You didn't ask for this," Lily said softly, pulling away slightly but keeping her hands on Hannah's shoulders. "He made a choice. You didn't make that choice for him. And you don't deserve this. You deserve better." Hannah nodded, wiping her eyes, trying to clear the fog in her mind. "I know, but I keep wondering why I didn't see it. He was so distant, so cold. But I never thought it would be something like this. Not until today. I thought he was my forever, Lily. I really thought that." Lily gave her a sympathetic look and gently led her to the couch. "I know, babe, I know, but listen to me. This isn't about you, this is about him. He made the decision to betray you, and it doesn't make any of it your fault. You're a strong, incredible woman. This doesn't define you. It's just a really awful chapter, but it's not the end." Hannah swallowed hard, trying to digest Lily's words. She wasn't sure she believed them yet, but hearing them helped, even if just a little. She looked down at her hands, now resting in her lap. The engagement ring still sparkled on her finger, a painful reminder of what could have been. She didn't know if she could take it off just yet. It felt like part of her, a part she wasn't ready to let go of, at least not today. Lily seemed to sense the heaviness in the room. "Hey, I didn't come here to give you a speech. I just want you to know that I'm here. No matter what you need, no matter how long it takes, we'll figure this out, okay?" Hannah nodded, feeling a little more grounded, a little less alone. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't even know where to start." "Well, we can start with whatever you want. If you need space, I'll give you that. If you need to talk, I'm all ears. Or if you want to get out of here for a while, we can go do something, anything. It's your choice. But you're not alone in this, Hannah. Not now. Not ever." There was something in Lily's voice, steady, reassuring, that made Hannah feel just a bit more at ease. She didn't know what the future held, and she didn't know when the pain would ease, but for the first time since the devastating confrontation with Ethan, she felt like there might be a way forward. Maybe it wouldn't happen today, or tomorrow, or even next week. But she would get through this. Hannah stood up and moved to her bedroom, where the dress still hung in the corner, mocking her with its pristine white fabric. She hadn't even had the chance to put it on. Now it felt like a dream that had been shattered. She stared at it for a long moment before finally taking a deep breath and turning away. She walked back to the living room, where Lily was waiting, her expression understanding. "I don't know what's next," Hannah said quietly, her voice uncertain, but stronger than it had been the day before. "But I know I can't stay here forever. I have to figure out how to move on. For me." Lily smiled softly. "And you will. One step at a time, just like I said. It's going to hurt. It's going to be messy. But you will come out the other side of this, stronger." Hannah nodded again. Maybe it wouldn't be easy, but she knew it had to be done. She wasn't going to let Ethan's choices steal her future. She wasn't going to let them steal her. She was still Hannah, and she still had her whole life ahead of her, one day at a time. "Let's go," Hannah said finally, determination creeping into her voice. "Let's do something. Anything." Lily's face brightened, and together they left the apartment. The road ahead was unclear, but for the first time in days, Hannah felt like she was moving forward. The past was behind her, and the future, whatever it might be, was waiting. The city felt different as Hannah and Lily walked down the busy streets, the noise of the crowd and the hustle of everyday life offering a strange kind of comfort. It was like the world had moved on, leaving Hannah to catch up. She didn't know where they were headed, but being out, surrounded by people, made her feel less isolated. It was as if the motion of the world around her was a reminder that life didn't stop just because hers had. It kept going, relentlessly. Lily, noticing the shift in Hannah's demeanor, gave her an encouraging smile. "See? Not so bad to get out of the apartment, huh?" Hannah nodded, her lips curving into a small, reluctant smile. "Yeah, I guess not." But even as she said it, she couldn't shake the heaviness in her chest. It was as if she were carrying the weight of everything, the betrayal, the broken dreams, the uncertainty, on her shoulders. She tried to push it away, but it lingered like a shadow, just out of reach, but always there. They wandered through the park for a while, talking about anything and everything except Ethan. It was a welcome distraction, but each moment, each laugh, reminded Hannah that the life she had been so sure of was no longer hers. They stopped at a small cafe, one that Hannah had always passed by but never entered. Today, though, it felt like the right place. They found a quiet corner, away from the bustle, where the smell of fresh coffee and baked goods wrapped around them like a comforting blanket. As they sat down, Lily pushed a menu toward Hannah. "What can I get you? You look like you could use something to lift your spirits." Hannah looked at the menu, though she wasn't really seeing it. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Ethan. She was trying to distract herself, trying to pretend that everything was fine, but she couldn't escape the painful memories. She picked at the edge of the menu, her fingers trembling slightly. "I don't even know. Maybe just a coffee, black, nothing fancy." Lily watched her closely, a mixture of concern and understanding on her face. "I know this is hard, but you'll get through it. You're stronger than you realize, Hannah, and even if it feels like the world's falling apart right now, it's not. You'll rebuild." Hannah didn't respond right away. She wasn't sure what to say. She wanted to believe Lily, but every time she thought about Ethan, about the way he had lied to her, about the future he had promised her, the pain seemed to deepen. The question that kept echoing in her mind was, why didn't he tell me sooner? She looked at Lily, forcing herself to focus. "I keep asking myself why he didn't just tell me. Why keep it a secret until the very last minute? If he had been honest, maybe I would have been hurt, but at least I could have made a choice. Now it feels like I didn't even have a say in any of it." Lily nodded, her expression softening. "You're right. He should have been honest. He shouldn't have waited until the wedding day to drop that bomb on you. But I need you to hear me, okay? That's not your fault. He made that choice, and he has to live with it. You didn't make him do it. You didn't ask for that kind of pain." Hannah's heart tightened at Lily's words. She had always known that Ethan's actions weren't her fault, but hearing it out loud from someone who truly understood made it feel a little easier to breathe. It was still hard to accept that the man she thought she knew could do something so hurtful, but hearing Lily remind her of her own worth helped chip away at the layers of doubt that had built up over the past few hours. A waiter appeared at their table, and Hannah ordered the coffee, trying her best to focus on the present instead of the whirlwind inside her mind. She wasn't sure how long they stayed at the cafe. Time felt like it had slowed, stretching out the minutes into hours. Eventually, after several cups of coffee and an easy conversation that drifted from one topic to the next, Hannah started to feel something she hadn't felt all day, a small sense of relief. It wasn't that the pain had disappeared or that the weight of the situation had lifted, but being out, talking with Lily, allowed her to breathe just a little easier. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened. It was about accepting it and knowing that somehow she would be okay. She wasn't sure when she would get there, but she would. After the cafe, Lily suggested a walk around the neighborhood, and Hannah agreed. As they strolled down the tree-lined streets, the world seemed a little brighter. The sun had come out, casting a warm glow over everything. The streets were filled with people going about their day, some smiling, some talking, others lost in their own thoughts. For the first time that day, Hannah felt like she was part of the world again. She wasn't alone in her pain, and she didn't have to carry it by herself. They eventually stopped at a small park, and Lily turned to her, her expression serious but kind. "I know you're hurting right now, and I know you don't have all the answers, but you're stronger than you think. You've got this, Hannah. You just have to believe that." Hannah looked out over the park, watching children play and couples walk hand in hand. The world, despite everything, was still moving. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and life was still happening, whether she was ready for it or not. For the first time in what felt like forever, Hannah allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could move forward. She could find peace again. Not today and not tomorrow, but eventually. She would get there. "Thanks, Lily," she said quietly. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Lily smiled, giving her a reassuring hug. "You'll never have to find out, I promise. I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time since the devastation of the morning, Hannah felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't the kind of hope that promised everything would be okay right away, but it was the kind that told her she wasn't finished. The story wasn't over yet. The days that followed felt like a blur, but in the midst of the chaos, something inside Hannah shifted. It wasn't instant. It wasn't a sudden flood of clarity. Instead, it was like a slow, steady pull, a whisper in the back of her mind reminding her that life could still be beautiful, even in the wake of heartbreak. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it wasn't as suffocating as it had been in the first few hours after walking away from Ethan. She spent the next few days in a kind of numb routine, taking each step as it came. She called work and explained the situation, asking for some time off. Thankfully, they understood, and she was given a week to gather her thoughts and deal with everything. She used the time to get out of the apartment, to breathe, and most importantly, to not think about Ethan. It was difficult, but with Lily's encouragement, Hannah began to understand that the world hadn't stopped, and neither could she. Each morning she walked through the city streets, feeling the weight of her past slowly lifting. She met with Lily almost every day, either for coffee, a walk, or just sitting in silence as they shared the occasional laugh. Hannah had come to realize that she didn't need to rush her healing. She didn't need to pretend to be okay. It was enough to just be, to take each day one step at a time. Then came the unexpected message. It was a few days after the initial shock had worn off, when Hannah had begun to feel a little more like herself, that she received a text from Ethan. Her phone buzzed in her hand, and her heart raced as she saw his name on the screen. She hesitated for a moment, her thumb hovering over the message. She had been dreading this, wondering when or if he would try to reach out. "Hannah, I know this message might be the last thing you want, but I can't keep pretending like everything is okay. I know I hurt you, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to know how sorry I am. I made a terrible mistake, and I can't live with myself knowing what I've done to you. If there's any chance at all, I'd like to talk. Please, when you're ready, I'm here." Hannah stared at the words for a long time, her fingers tight around the phone. She had expected something like this, but seeing it in black and white made her stomach churn. It was hard not to feel conflicted. Part of her, especially the part that still loved Ethan, wanted to reach out, to hear him out, to understand how he could have done this. But then another part of her, the part that had spent the last few days trying to rebuild herself, reminded her that this wasn't just about Ethan. It was about her. It was about moving forward, not backward. She put the phone down and took a deep breath. She wasn't ready to talk to him. Not yet. She wasn't sure if she ever would be, but what she did know was that she wasn't the same person she had been when she first walked away. She was stronger, she had to be, and no matter how much she might still care about him, she had to stay true to herself. For the next few hours, the message sat in her phone like a silent reminder of the past, but she chose not to reply. She couldn't. Not now. Not when she wasn't sure where her heart truly stood. She needed more time. That evening, she called her mother. The conversation was difficult at first, with her mother trying to piece together what had happened, asking Hannah if she was sure about her decision. She understood her mother's concern, but it was hard to explain just how broken she felt. "I don't know if I can ever go back, Mom," Hannah said quietly into the phone. "The hurt is just too much. I thought Ethan was my person, but now I don't even know who he really is." Her mother's voice softened, full of compassion. "Hannah, I know this is hard, but I want you to know something. You are strong, and you deserve someone who will love you the way you deserve to be loved. What Ethan did was wrong, but it doesn't define you. You'll find your way, and if it takes time, that's okay. Just take it one day at a time, and you'll heal." Hannah swallowed, feeling a lump form in her throat. It was hard to hear, but it was the truth. Ethan's actions didn't define her, and even though it felt like she had lost everything, in reality she was still standing. She was still her. "I'm trying to, Mom," she whispered. "I really am." As the days stretched on, Hannah found herself thinking less and less about Ethan and more about what she needed to do next. It wasn't a quick or easy process, but each small step felt like a victory. She started picking up the pieces of her life, one by one. She took long walks, spent time with friends, and even found a new hobby, painting. It wasn't about being perfect or putting on a brave face. It was about finding things that made her feel alive again, even if only for a moment. One evening, as she sat in the small local park, paintbrush in hand, a thought occurred to her. She had been so focused on her pain, so consumed by her broken relationship with Ethan, that she had forgotten to live for herself. She had put so much of her identity into being with him, into being the perfect couple. But now, it was time to remember who she was without him. She was more than just a girlfriend, a fiancée, or a wife-to-be. She was Hannah, strong, independent, and capable of healing. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the park, Hannah felt a quiet peace settle inside her. The journey ahead would be filled with ups and downs, but she was ready. It wasn't about getting over Ethan or pretending like it hadn't hurt. It was about rediscovering herself. And maybe, just maybe, she would be stronger for it. The world hadn't stopped, and neither had she. It had been a few weeks since that message from Ethan, and though it still lingered in the back of Hannah's mind, she had made peace with not responding. Each day the ache in her chest grew a little less sharp, replaced by a quiet determination. She was starting to see the world with a new perspective, one that didn't revolve around Ethan or the life she thought they would share. It was a small shift, but it was enough to make her feel like she had control again. Hannah had found herself spending more time with her friends, especially Lily, who had become her anchor through this tumultuous time. They spent afternoons in cafes, late-night conversations, and sometimes simple moments of silence that spoke louder than words. Lily was always there, offering reassurance without pushing, giving Hannah the space she needed to process, but also reminding her that she wasn't alone in this. One afternoon, as they sat in their usual spot at the local cafe, Lily brought up a suggestion that had been quietly forming in her mind for days. "You know," she said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully, "maybe it's time you do something for you. Something completely separate from Ethan, something that reminds you of who you are, outside of everything that's happened." Hannah raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" Lily's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Well, you've always wanted to travel, right? Why not take that trip you've been talking about for years? Just go somewhere, anywhere, to clear your head and start fresh. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just go." The suggestion hit Hannah like a jolt of electricity. She had always dreamed of seeing the world, of escaping the daily grind, and the expectations that came with being in a relationship. The idea of traveling solo felt liberating, an opportunity to rediscover herself, away from everything familiar, away from the place where so many memories of Ethan lingered. It wasn't about running away. It was about moving forward, giving herself the chance to heal in a way that was completely hers. "I've never done anything like that," Hannah admitted, feeling both nervous and excited at the prospect. "It's always been something I wanted to do, but kept putting off. Until now." Lily leaned in, her voice filled with encouragement. "Exactly. There's no better time than now. And think about it. No pressure. Just you, your thoughts, and a world full of new experiences. You've spent so much time trying to heal from what you lost. Maybe it's time to focus on what you can gain. I think it's a great way to reset." Hannah couldn't help but smile at her friend's enthusiasm. For the first time in a long time, she felt a spark of excitement, something that wasn't linked to the pain of the past. It felt like the start of something new, something important for her. She didn't need to have it all figured out. She just needed to take the first step. "I'll think about it," she said, still unsure of how to make such a big decision, but already feeling a sense of possibility. The idea of traveling alone terrified her in the best way. It was a chance to challenge herself, to step out of her comfort zone and prove to herself that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. As the weeks passed, Hannah began to plan. She researched destinations, looked into places that were peaceful, beautiful, and healing. She knew she didn't want anything too crowded or chaotic. She needed something serene, somewhere she could breathe and reflect. Slowly, her excitement built as the pieces of her solo adventure started to come together. One evening, after weeks of back and forth, she finally made her decision. She booked a flight to a small coastal town in Italy, a place known for its quiet beauty, rich history, and the kind of tranquility that she craved. It wasn't a grand, life-changing trip, but it was a start, a new chapter, a place to breathe, to let go, and to move forward with her own 2 feet. As the days drew closer to her departure, Hannah felt a mix of emotions. There was nervousness, certainly, but also anticipation. She hadn't done anything this bold in a long time. For years, she had lived her life according to the rhythm of someone else's beat. And now, for the first time in ages, she was doing something just for her. The night before she left, she packed her suitcase carefully, folding each item with precision, as though the act of packing itself was a ritual of renewal. She felt like she was closing one chapter of her life and beginning another. Even though the past few months had been filled with pain and confusion, they had also given her the gift of clarity. She was learning to trust herself again, to believe in herself, to remember that she was worthy of happiness and peace, no matter how it came. As she zipped up her suitcase and turned off the lights in her apartment, she felt an unfamiliar calm settle over her. The weight of the past hadn't completely vanished, but it was no longer crushing her. She was ready for the next step, whatever it might bring. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but it would be hers to walk. The next morning, after a tearful but proud goodbye to her family and friends, Hannah boarded the plane, her heart full of hope and uncertainty. She didn't know what awaited her in Italy, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to find out. In that moment, she realized that the world was bigger than the hurt she had been holding on to. It was waiting for her, and all she had to do was take that first step into the unknown. And for the first time in months, that unknown didn't feel as scary as it once had. It felt like freedom. The flight to Italy was long, but the hours seemed to pass quickly as Hannah found herself lost in the beauty of the sky outside her window. The clouds rolled by like soft pillows, and for a moment she could almost believe that everything was right in the world. The rhythmic hum of the airplane was oddly comforting, and she allowed herself to relax into it. There was no pressure, no expectations. For the first time in ages, she could just be. When the plane finally touched down in Italy, her heart beat faster with excitement. The air was different here, fresher, warmer, and tinged with a scent of salt water. She could feel the pulse of the place, its history, its beauty, and its rhythm. Everything felt new, and it was like she was stepping into a different world altogether. Her destination was a small coastal town named Cinque Terre, known for its breathtaking views and colorful villages. It was a place that felt untouched by time, with winding streets, quiet hills, and a coast that stretched on forever. Hannah knew it was exactly what she needed: solitude, beauty, and the chance to reconnect with herself. The drive from the airport was scenic, the landscape unfolding in front of her like a postcard. As they made their way through the hills, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden light over everything. The small villages of Cinque Terre came into view, perched on cliffs, their houses in vibrant shades of yellow, orange, and pink. It was like nothing she had ever seen, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a deep sense of peace settle over her. The hotel she had booked was a small, family-run place with a view of the sea. The owners greeted her with warm smiles and a genuine sense of hospitality that made her feel immediately at home. The room was cozy, simple, with soft linens and a window that opened up to a panoramic view of the Mediterranean. After unpacking, Hannah stepped out onto the small balcony and breathed in the salty air. The waves crashing against the rocks below seemed to whisper in a language she didn't fully understand. But it didn't matter. She felt the weight of her past slip away, piece by piece, as she stood there, taking it all in. The first night she wandered into the village, the narrow streets lit by the soft glow of lanterns. She found a small restaurant by the water where she ordered a simple pasta dish accompanied by a glass of local wine. The flavors were rich, comforting, and the meal felt like a small act of self-care. As she ate, she listened to the conversations around her, the soft murmur of Italian voices, the laughter of families, the clinking of glasses. It all felt so far removed from the life she had left behind. For the first time in weeks, Hannah didn't think about Ethan. She didn't think about the pain or the confusion or the mess of it all. She just existed in the moment, and that moment felt good. The days in Cinque Terre passed in a quiet, peaceful rhythm. Hannah woke early each morning to the sound of birds singing and the distant waves crashing against the shore. She spent her days exploring the town, wandering the cobblestone streets, and soaking in the breathtaking views. Each village had its own charm, quaint shops, colorful buildings, and narrow alleys that seemed to lead to hidden treasures. She would stop at small cafes for espresso, strike up conversations with the locals, and sit by the water, watching the boats drift lazily by. As she explored, she also found time for introspection. Walking through the narrow paths of the village with the scent of the ocean in the air and the sun warming her skin, Hannah began to reflect on everything that had brought her to this moment. The pain of her breakup with Ethan was still there, of course, but it no longer felt like an insurmountable wall. It had become a part of her story, not the whole story. One afternoon, as she sat on a bench overlooking the sea, she pulled out her journal and began to write. It wasn't something she had done in a long time, but she found herself compelled to put her thoughts down on paper. She wrote about the hurt, the confusion, the betrayal, but she also wrote about the beauty she was finding here, in this quiet town, and the small moments of peace that were beginning to fill the cracks in her heart. For the first time in months, Hannah felt like she was beginning to understand who she was again. She had spent so much of her life trying to fit into a mold, trying to make her relationship with Ethan work. But now, in this quiet place, she was learning to be herself without the influence of anyone else. She could feel the slow, steady healing process taking root. That evening, after a long walk along the cliffs, she found a small art gallery tucked away in one of the alleys. It was filled with local paintings and photographs, each piece capturing the essence of the region, the light, the landscape, the people. She wandered through the gallery feeling drawn to one painting in particular. It was of the coastline, the cliffs rising above the sea, with the sunset casting long shadows over the water. It reminded her of the moments she had spent here, of the peace she had found. The artist, an older woman with kind eyes, noticed her admiring the painting. "Do you like it?" she asked in broken English. "It's beautiful," Hannah replied. "It feels like this place, like it's alive in the painting." The woman smiled. "It is alive. This place, it has a way of healing. You come, and you leave different." Hannah didn't know if she fully understood the words at the time, but something about them stuck with her. Maybe that's exactly what she needed, a place that could heal her, even in small ways, even when she didn't fully expect it. As she left the gallery that evening, the painting tucked under her arm, she felt something shift inside her. It was subtle, like a seed being planted. But she knew that this trip, this quiet time alone, was exactly what she needed to move forward. Not just from Ethan, but from everything that had held her back. She was beginning to understand that healing wasn't a straight line. It didn't happen overnight. But it was happening. Slowly, but surely. By the end of the week, Hannah felt a renewed sense of peace she hadn't expected. She had found more than just a beautiful place to visit. She had found a space to reconnect with herself, to listen to her heart, and to let go of the past. On her final day in Cinque Terre, she decided to take a long hike along one of the coastal trails. It was a challenging path, winding up the cliffs and offering panoramic views of the sea below. The hike was tough, the incline steep, But as she climbed, she found herself thinking less and less about her pain and more about the beauty around her. The way the sunlight danced on the water, the way the scent of the flowers on the hillsides filled her lungs. At the top of the trail, she stopped to catch her breath, her legs aching from the climb. She looked out at the vast expanse of ocean before her, feeling small in the best possible way. The world stretched out, endless and full of possibilities. She realized, standing there, that her journey wasn't just about moving on from Ethan, it was about finding herself again, rediscovering who she was beyond the relationship, beyond the heartbreak. She didn't have all the answers. She didn't know what the future held. But standing on that cliff, looking at the horizon, she felt a sense of peace settle in her heart. She was ready for whatever came next. She wasn't defined by her past or by the man who had hurt her. She was Hannah, strong, capable, and, for the first time in a long time, hopeful for the future. With a final look at the ocean, she began her descent, knowing that this chapter of her life was ending, and a new one was just beginning. The days following her hike were filled with a quiet contentment. Hannah felt lighter, as if the weight that had been bearing down on her for so long had finally lifted. Cinque Terre had done something for her that she hadn't realized she needed, a chance to reconnect with herself, to breathe, and simply exist without the shadows of the past looming over her. As she walked through the villages for the last time, she found herself looking at everything through new eyes. The buildings seemed brighter, the sea more vibrant, and the people she passed on the street seemed to smile just a little bit wider. Hannah didn't want to leave. The small, tranquil town had become a sanctuary, a place where she could feel safe, where she could take a deep breath and just be. But she knew it was time to return. She had been given the space she needed to heal, and now it was time to face the world again, to go back to her life and start fresh. The morning of her departure, the sky was clear, the sun warm against her skin, as if nature itself was sending her off with a gentle hug. She packed her things slowly, not wanting to rush the process, savoring the last few moments in this peaceful place. After checking out of the hotel, she made one final walk down to the sea. She sat at the edge of the water, dipping her toes into the cool, refreshing waves, letting the rhythm of the ocean settle her once more. As she sat there, lost in the sound of the waves, a message from her phone buzzed in her bag. She pulled it out, half expecting it to be from her mom or Lily, but when she saw the name on the screen, her stomach dropped. It was from Ethan. "I know you've probably moved on, and I don't want to disturb you, but I can't stop thinking about what I did. I regret everything. If you ever find it in your heart to talk, I'll be here. I understand if you never want to see me again. I just need you to know how deeply sorry I am." For a moment she just stared at the message. The familiar ache started to rise again in her chest, but it didn't hit as hard as it used to. This time it was different. The feelings of anger and betrayal still lingered, but they no longer consumed her. She had moved forward. She was still moving forward. Ethan's apology, though sincere, didn't change anything. Hannah took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and then deleted the message. She wasn't ready to open that door again. She didn't need to. She had spent enough of her life waiting for answers from someone else. Now it was time to focus on her own journey. She sent a quick message back to Lily, letting her know she was headed to the airport and would be home soon. Then, with one final glance at the sea, she stood up and began walking back to the village. It was time to leave this beautiful place behind, but she knew that it would stay with her, its peace, its beauty, and the lessons it had given her. As she boarded the train that would take her to the airport, she felt ready. Ready to face what awaited her at home, ready to start the next chapter, ready to build a life that was hers and hers alone. Returning home was a strange experience. The familiar sights of her city, the busy streets, the noise, it all felt so distant, almost foreign, after the quiet of Cinque Terre. The apartment that had once felt like a home now felt a little too big, a little too empty. The memories of Ethan, of the life they had planned, lingered in the corners, but they didn't hold the same power over her anymore. She had learned so much during her time away. She had learned to let go of the past, to forgive herself for the choices she had made, and to embrace the future with open arms. It wasn't going to be easy, but she was ready to rebuild her life, to rediscover who she was outside of a relationship. The first few days back were spent quietly. Hannah unpacked her bags, sorted through the few belongings she had left from her time with Ethan, and made small changes to her apartment, moving furniture around, hanging up a few new pictures. She wanted the space to feel different, to reflect the person she was becoming. She also reached out to her friends, reconnecting with those she hadn't seen in a while. Lily was, of course, a constant presence, always there to offer support. But there were others too, old friends from work, people she hadn't talked to in months. Slowly, she started filling her life with more of what mattered, real connections, new experiences, and the sense of self that had eluded her for so long. One afternoon, about a week after her return, she received a call from her mother. The conversation started like any other, small talk at first, but then her mother asked the question she had been waiting for. "So, have you talked to Ethan?" Hannah took a deep breath. She knew this question was coming. Her mother had been supportive of her decision, but she had also expressed concern that Hannah might never truly get closure unless she spoke to him. "No, Mom," Hannah replied softly. "I haven't, and I don't think I need to." Her mother paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was gentle. "I'm proud of you, honey. I think you've made the right choice. You're moving on, and that's the most important thing." Hannah smiled, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. It felt good to have her mother's support, but more importantly, it felt good to be sure of herself. She didn't need anyone else's approval to move forward. She was in control of her life, and for the first time in a long time, she knew that was enough. The weeks passed, and with each day, Hannah felt a little stronger. She started exploring new hobbies, taking weekend trips to nearby cities, and rediscovering parts of herself she had forgotten. Slowly, the pain of the past faded into the background, replaced by a quiet confidence she hadn't known she was capable of. And though the journey was far from over, Hannah knew one thing for certain. She was no longer defined by the relationship she had left behind. She was a woman in control of her destiny, and with every step she was moving closer to the life she was meant to live. The road ahead was unknown, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to embrace it. Months passed, and as the seasons changed, so did Hannah. It was subtle, almost imperceptible at first, little things that began to shift within her. The echo of her past no longer haunted her every waking moment. The pain, while never fully gone, had become something she could live with, something she could carry without it weighing her down. The scars from her relationship with Ethan had faded into the background, no longer defining her existence. Her days were filled with work, social outings, and quiet nights spent alone, doing things she loved. She found herself reading more, picking up books that weren't about self-help or heartbreak, but about new ideas, new worlds. She signed up for an art class, something she had always wanted to try, but had put off for years. The creative outlet became a space where she could express herself in ways words couldn't. She poured her emotions into her paintings, and with each brushstroke, she found a little more of herself. But it wasn't just about filling the silence with distractions. It was about discovering who she was beneath the layers of grief, of betrayal, of self-doubt. She learned to enjoy her own company. For the first time in her life, she wasn't searching for validation from anyone else. She didn't need anyone to tell he. But it wasn't just about filling the silence with distractions. It was about discovering who she was beneath the layers of grief, of betrayal, of self-doubt. She learned to enjoy her own company. For the first time in her life, She wasn't searching for validation from anyone else. She didn't need anyone to tell her she was worthy. She knew it now. She started dating again, tentatively at first, but with time, she became more open to the idea of loving someone else. But this time, it was different. She wasn't rushing into anything. She wasn't searching for the perfect relationship. Instead, she was looking for companionship, for shared experiences with someone who respected her, who saw her as she truly was, not as the woman she had been in a past life. The first few dates were awkward. The first kiss felt strange, like she was learning it all over again. But she didn't mind. Each small step felt like progress, like she was reclaiming a part of herself she had forgotten. And with each new encounter, she grew more confident, more certain of what she wanted in life and in love. One evening, she met a man named Oliver. He was kind, thoughtful, and unlike anyone she had dated before. They spent hours talking, sharing stories about their lives, their passions, their hopes. It wasn't fireworks, not yet, but it was real. It felt like something worth exploring, something slow and steady, without the pressure of expectations. For the first time in a long time, Hannah wasn't afraid to fall in love again. She had learned that love wasn't about perfection. It was about two people meeting halfway, about building a connection from scratch. She wasn't trying to recreate the love she had lost with Ethan. She was learning to build something new, something that was hers, something that was based on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. As she stood at the edge of a new chapter in her life, Hannah realized that the journey wasn't just about finding love or healing from heartbreak. It was about learning to love herself again, first and foremost. And in doing so, she had found peace. Hannah sat on the balcony of her apartment one evening, a glass of wine in hand, watching the sun set behind the city skyline. The colors of the sky were breathtaking, a mix of pink, orange, and purple that made the world feel alive, as if everything were coming into focus once more. She took a slow sip, feeling the warmth of the wine spread through her, and for the first time in a long time, she felt truly content. Her life had changed in ways she never expected. She had come so far from the broken woman who had left everything behind in the wake of her relationship with Ethan. The woman who had walked away from the wedding, unsure of who she was or what her future held, was no longer the same person. She had found her way through the darkness, and while the scars of the past would always be a part of her, they no longer defined her. She had learned to trust herself again, to trust her own instincts, and to take control of her own happiness. She had discovered new passions, made new friends, and explored parts of the world and herself that she had once neglected. She had forgiven herself for the mistakes she thought she had made, and she had learned that life didn't always go as planned, but that didn't mean it wasn't beautiful. Oliver, the man she had recently met, was there beside her now, sharing the evening with her. They didn't need to say much. There was an easy comfort between them, a quiet understanding. It wasn't the whirlwind romance she had once dreamed of, but it felt real, and that was enough. He had become a part of her journey, and though she wasn't rushing into anything, she was open to whatever came next. In that moment, as she looked out at the city, at the life she had built for herself, Hannah realized something important. She was no longer waiting for the perfect love, the perfect life. She had found it in herself. The love she had always been searching for was the love she had learned to give herself. And as the sky darkened and the first stars appeared, Hannah smiled softly to herself. She was ready for whatever came next. Her heart, once broken, was whole again, not because of anyone else, but because she had learned how to heal it herself. The future was waiting for her, full of possibility, and this time she was ready to embrace it fully, on her terms, with no regrets and no looking back.